hanging on to something which is illegitimate. And they should lose face and lose all kinds of credibility in the same way that the apartheid regime in South Africa lost credibility and was forced to disarm itself in terms of its nuclear weapons.
A nuclear disarmament conference was held in Iran in April, named Nuclear Energy for All, Nuclear Weapons for None. Over 60 officials from different countries attended, including senior representatives from the United Nations. Do you think Tehran's conference changed global thought on nuclear disarmament?
I think it did have some impact, but this is only the beginning, because it's the first time that a country is sort of dedicating its resources, including financial resources, to organizing such a nuclear disarmament and nuclear non-proliferation conference. And to their credit, they have set up a permanent secretariat, and they're going to have annual conferences, repeat of these conferences every year from now on. So they are trying to attract world public opinion, international NGOs, and attract sympathy and support and active involvement of the non-aligned movement for their agenda. And to that extent, I think it's a good beginning, but there's a long way to go.
Look, there's no doubt that Iran makes some positive contributions to the debate, which fits into South Africa's argument is that 40 years ago there was an agreement that all nuclear weapons would be dismantled, and that hasn't happened. And as you said earlier, the NPT, the treaty itself, recognizes the inalienable right of states to use nuclear material for peaceful purposes. And that is what Iran is arguing that they are doing.
I'd like to talk about any dangers that the world may face in the future. It's well known that the US attacked Japan in 1945, with nuclear bombs killing the people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and furthermore causing radiation illness throughout generations. Along with Russia, the US currently holds over 90% of the world's nuclear warheads. Since the US and Russia are not going to get rid of their nuclear weapons, saying they need the weapons as a deterrent, could the world see another nuclear war in the future?
I think as long as we've got countries which are nuclear armed, the possibility of nuclear war always exists. You see, we should remember that not only the US has used nuclear weapons against Japan in the past, but it's also, and this is probably much more important, it's unrepentant. It's still 65 years after the tragedy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It justifies what it did to the people of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So as long as we have got nuclear-armed states, then the possibility exists there.
We're coming close to the end of the program. I'd like to finally ask you if you see a nuclear weapons-free world, and can you tell me if it's a realistic vision?
I think the objective of getting to a nuclear weapons-free world it's a worthwhile objective, but I also think that we have to be realistic and say getting there is going to be difficult. It's going to require, for example, solving some very different verification questions. Because if you get to a non-nuclear world, if one country hides away a secret stockpile of even 5 or 6 nuclear weapons, it has a huge security advantage. So now you have a verification regime that allows all countries to be assured that, in fact, nuclear weapons are gone. The other thing I think we'll have to think through is what kind of security arrangements would prevail in a world after nuclear weapons. Because nuclear weapons, certainly, they are hugely destructive weapons. Any use would be a huge catastrophe. But one advantage nuclear weapons have had, and we saw it during the Cold War, is that their presence as a deterrent, kept the Cold War a Cold War. You did not have major military conflict between the United States and Russia. So you want to think this through so that if you go to a non-nuclear world, you don't make the world safe for major conventional wars like World War II, which killed 65 million people.
In the same way that international pressure forced South Africa to give up on its nuclear arsenal, I think if there is real, on the part of international community, on the part of world population, then we can build those organizations, those structures, and those regulations and rules that would force these nuclear-armed countries to have to give up their nuclear arms in order to retain some sort of credibility and legitimacy for themselves.
We've come towards the end of the program. I'd like to thank you, Abbas Edalat, political activist and professor at Imperial College of London, and Stephen Pifer, Senior Fellow of the Brookings Institute from Washington, and our guest from New York, Noel Stott, from the Institute for Security Studies in South Africa. It's been a pleasure having you with us. Do send your views about this week's programme. Let me remind you of our email, dialogue@gvnjournal.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks again from our guests. I'm Amir Tahouri for Dialogue.